Well, he's dead. That might sound a little jarring, but those of you who knew my father should also know that he had little interest in decorum. My father, Frank Vincent Zappa, was too busy making music and demolishing hypocrisy to worry about being remembered or leaving behind a legacy. But despite that, we friends, family, fellow musicians, and artists are gathered here today to celebrate his work's impact. Frank created a massive body of work. He wrote, performed, and produced 62 albums during his 27-year career. In his studio, which he called the Utility Muffin Research Kitchen, don't ask, he explored musical and lyrical boundaries to extents that make the punk movement look like the Vienna Boys Choir. Frank's music, which covered so many genres as to make classification impossible, was polarizing, gross, occasionally fanatic, sometimes atonal, but was also honest, precise, hilarious, challenging, and delivered with trademark serrated wit and intelligence. Nobody was safe or immune to his brand of satire. Now, the second track of Overnight Sensation, which was his 17th album, was titled I'm the Slime. Okay? Now, I'm sure we all remember it, but just to jog your memory, during the opening of the song, Frank opens up with just one of his most blistering guitar solos that he ever recorded. But then the song goes on to predict the couch potato culture and its rise, and it also characterizes the crass television programming and mindless consumerism as the slime in the title. I don't think it's too much of a stretch to consider the slime as a little autobiographical there as well. I mean, bear in mind, during the height of his popularity, or whatever you'd call it, plenty of people likened him and his music to something that might ooze out of a bile duct. While we're here, let me just dispel that one stupid myth. No, he never ate poop on stage, or anywhere else for that matter. Now, Frank detested rock critics and rock culture's overblown hero worship. He wasn't having any of that. So, with no interest in being fashionable, after all, he was a classical composer, I guess, he embraced and cultivated the ugliness that many critics associated with his work. And this gave him a lot of freedom and power to destroy pretenses left, right, and center. That weird baritone voice of his and farting sound effects, and it's just a total disregard for censorship. No topic was off limits, and my favorite example of this was when faces across the nation went pale as his song titled Jewish Princess reprised into its all-kazoo and marimba bridge. Now, for those who haven't heard it, I think maybe a couple of you might not have, I leave the lyrics entirely to your imagination. So thanks to all that bile, Frank's music isn't easily digested by most people. And what's more, some people hear his comedic songs like St. Alfonso's Pancake Breakfast or Why Does It Hurt When I Pee? And they just, they laugh at it and they leave it at that. And they write him off as a novelty musician, but Frank defied such superficial classifications all his life. Plus, as an ardent defender of the First Amendment, he stood by his art and defended U.S. musicians from the PMRC, which is the Parents Music Resource Center, and their arbitrary, useless rating systems for music. He stood in court alongside musicians like John Denver and Dee Snider, who's the guy from Twisted Sister. Kind of strange bedfellows there. But he spearheaded a movement against government-sanctioned art censorship. And thanks to his intelligence and eloquence that day in court in 1985, musicians in the States are a little safer from Tipper Gore's suffocating classifications, and I think everyone in here can breathe a little easier as a result. All right, so as we wind down, okay, I have to ask you to bear with me, as I'm going to reach a little bit. Okay, so here we go. Do you remember how in the movie Alien, the aliens bled this goo that burned holes in the floor? Well, okay, it might not be a flattering comparison, not that my father would care, but Frank was kind of like that. All right, so this next part's so unappetizing. Frank was born in Maryland, but he spent most of his life in California. It took years, but the culture that surrounded him just continually applied pressure until it popped the pimple that encased him. And he just kind of oozed out like this sort of acidic slime. He seeped out and burned holes through American complacence, okay, which is a pretty high calling for any artist. Nobody will ever be able to emulate Frank's achievements or anything else about him, but there's no sense in mourning him or over-sentimentalizing this event. He wouldn't like that very much. See, his time with us is over, but he leaves us with some important ideas to digest, uphold, and pass on.